Alright, so this is going to be about the EBR 75 MLE. It's currently in the store bundled with the Barask and the Vanguard, and because a lot of people have those tanks, I suspect some people are just going to buy it because it's going to be really cheap. Because if you own a couple of the tanks and a package in the store and you buy it, you'll get a gold refund for those tanks, and the one tank you bought will just be really cheap. And this tank is like a trap. I don't like this tank. I think it has potential, but when you get pushed into a tier 10 game, it's just really frustrating. The pin values aren't really all that great, and the gun, it's just not as good as you think. And there's a 2-shot autoloader, but you essentially have a 9-second reload and then some weird inner clip, let's say like a second, so you have 10 seconds for 360 damage. Yeah, that's not all that great. It's kind of terrible, to be honest. It doesn't really make sense why you'd even want to play this thing over something like a Vanguard, because a Vanguard's gun might be bad, but it has better camo, better view range. It's not all that much slower, and I don't see the point of getting this when you could just get a Vanguard. But I'm also not a fan of the wheeled light tanks. To be fair, the wheeled light tanks do have an advantage of almost never being tracked. However, that doesn't really matter. Also, right here, my driving skills is pretty bad, and people are even worse at aiming, which is kind of a blessing. And you're going to kind of see me try to force this EBR to work in a tier 10 game. I struggle. I really did. This was one of the hardest games I've probably ever played. And to be honest, I didn't even do that great. That's kind of the worst part about it. The tank has almost no carry potential of its own. It just doesn't really do anything. It's kind of just one of those tanks that, yeah, it's in the game, and yeah, it might have some really good moments, but for the majority of the time, you're kind of just getting punished playing this tank. I don't even know why I'm shooting at that. That's my fault. I don't understand why. Right here, it's kind of annoying when you're trying to turn and you can't, and you kind of realize it and you're like, oh god. One of the advantages of wheels, though, too, is when you power slide, you can get a really good like drift, and it can swerve your tank around all crazy, and that can kind of allow you to essentially avoid some like damage here and there that you would normally wouldn't be able to just by turning or normal handbraking. Because when I say your tank spins, I mean it really spins when you have a wheeled vehicle and you handbrake. However, I just want you to know, it's not like a real drift. Your tank kind of just turns into like a Beyblade, essentially, or a spinning top, and just goes flying away. Yeah, this guy just absolutely gets wrecked. I'm sitting there trying to reload my heat, and the realization sets in that even with heat, I couldn't pin him anywhere if I wanted. So I just shoot him in the tracks 2 times to hopefully keep him tracked. And then I get pull out in front of the Borsig while detected. I get shot. I probably get him shot. That's like the worst part. He may have not even been detected, and he just got cheesed for it. Essentially my mistake. So yeah, shout out to you, Borsig or Iron Rain. I might have screwed you right there in hindsight. I didn't even see that the first time. So I'm just gonna play over here on this hills, and really I'm just gonna sit here and try to snipe, but this tank's pin is terrible, and I just sit here and I try to duke it out with this T69. I go up, he shoots me once, I pin him once, and now I'm down to being a one shot, and I only have 168 damage. So now in my mind, I'm like, I gotta really, really play this careful, because this is pretty rough. So essentially what I do is I start just being very, very careful. I don't poke for more than a second, and I just auto lock fire, and I kind of get him to back off. Luckily, and then I see this Turan, it's a UDES, but there is a Turan there as well, and I want to get some of the damage, so I just poke up real quick, shoot him once, I get detected, and immediately just drive backwards. Yeah, no, it feels kind of bad, because you kind of just go back and forth over and over again without really doing anything. I don't really, like, when you're not moving in this tank, the tank's like traverse and stuff feels almost unbearable. You can't turn on the spots, you can't do anything like that. You have to go back and forth first, and as a result it can cause some really wonky things to happen where you just can't turn or get somewhere really quick that you might normally be able to. So I don't really know how to feel about this tank. I feel like it has some like crazy hidden potential, but the reality is I just don't have the ability or the patience to learn the ability to make it work. I just don't have the patience. It's one of those mechanics where I think it's cool, but I simply don't feel the need to learn, especially this. I'm good. I don't know. I feel like they need a buff. I feel like wheeled vehicles are just kind of terrible. Their guns are pretty bad. The tank is, yeah, it's fast, but it's just, yeah, it's mediocre at best. Put a one shot into his back of his turret. I shoot another one that way, and I just completely miss. It's pretty typical, though. This tank's gun is pretty accurate on the move and stuff, and it's fairly accurate in general. But as you can see, I'm just glad that this player isn't like super smart and blind firing in this bush, because I'd be dead. There's just not a whole lot I can do. As you can see there, this is one of the drifts I was talking about, where your tank can do some really crazy just 180 stuff that you normally probably wouldn't be able to do. That's what I'm talking about. Although it's not something you use very often, and most of the time if you use it out of desperation, you're probably dead regardless of if you pull it off or not. So it doesn't really matter, in my opinion. It's an opinionated thing, right? Some people might think this is the best tier 8 light tank in the game, and honestly there's probably some people who could make it the best tier 8 light tank in the game. I simply don't like tanks like this, and it's just not really the type of tank I like to play. It's boring for me, and I don't like how the wheels, I can't turn on a dime. It kind of messes me up. And when you're getting shoved into tier 10 games and you get like really bad base pen, I just don't feel the need to really play this tank or on any time at all ever. And here I just kind of bully the Tran. It's like my one shot to like shoot a tank and like mess with them. It's, you know, I stop for a second, but then I think I finally come to the realization like this is going to be the only damage I get is bullying a tank that's just, he's not playing very well, and as a result I'm just going to basically just shoot the Tran the whole time because he's the only one I can pen. That's the sad reality of this tank, is you really need to get people's sides and rears, but also if you're not timing the tank right and the gun right, you're just gonna have a bad time, and that's just not gonna happen. And it's kind of hard to stay behind something because of the way the wheels work. So yeah, it's just not as, it's faster, but it's just not as flexible, I'd say. Even if it does have some cool little tricks you might be able to do that I don't know about since it's a wheeled vehicle. But personally, I don't feel the need to, you know, play this tank all the time. I'm not gonna lie, I'm in disbelief by the fact that I ricocheted off that twice. I don't know what's up with that Conway turret, but okay, I guess. That never happens. But here, yeah, I just go and immediately start trying to bully the Tran, knowing that, you know, he can't fire, you know, the chance of him ADSing that quick and then hitting me is pretty low, so, and I know I'm above him, so I can just shoot him twice, and I've done at least more than my HP, so I can't be all that mad. You know, I'm really just trying my best to make a bad situation better here, and it's not easy, but you just do what you can do, and that's kind of the best you can ask for, really. You can't really do a whole lot more. I do remember though, while playing this, I was really confused at what was spotting me. So you see me look to the left because I'm trying to think about like what's, you know, what keeps lighting me up when I fire this far away. I don't even know if I figured it out, but I put another shot in that was pretty lucky, not gonna lie. that was pretty much a needle thread, especially for this tank. So, you know, I'm just sitting here, just playing here, and yeah, nothing's really happening. I'm just kind of camping them out, waiting and taking my time, because that's really all I can do. This tank just doesn't have enough oomph in its gun. It doesn't have enough really anything but speed, but the tank is kind of big, so it's not that hard to hit. And hitting this, you can only take like 2 hits because you only have 950 health. They all pop up on my side. One immediately gets killed, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get some damage, and then I just don't. I can't find the depression, and it's just like pissing me off. That's another thing. His tank does not have very much depression, and then I shoot the waffle once on the side of the turret, and it keeps him alive. I was pretty shook. I'm not gonna let that had me pretty tilted at this point, and I was just glad the game was over. I don't like this tank. I don't know if y'all will like this tank. It's a really, really hard tank, in my opinion, to enjoy and be good at. You know, I may have done 2.5 times my health and damage and got second place in a tier 10 game, but it's just not an easy tank to play. Like, realistically, it's pretty difficult. I had to fire some heat. I didn't really pin a whole lot. I didn't make a bunch of silver, and I had to really try really hard just to do this. So I don't really understand why anyone would want to play this tank on a daily basis. I don't really think it's worth it. If you're thinking about picking it up, I think you should probably just save your gold for something better in the future. You know, at the end of the day, the decision is yours, whether you want it or not. But I personally just can't really stand this tank, and I just don't play it. And I strive to not play it, and I will continue to strive to make sure I do not have to play this tank, because I just don't like it.